All right. So thank you all for joining. As Andrel said, I manage our implementations team here at Alertis, and today we'd like to share some information with you about our Hpsa systems, as well as what they're capable of, and then how to configure them within the web management interface for Alertis. So primarily this is intended to be an outdoor solution, so open areas at a campus, stadiums, things with a wide coverage need in terms of audio notification. They're capable of siren tones. They'll do clear canned voice messages primarily, although there is a capability to perform live voice. And these are going to be typically connected over a wired network connection to a control station that then sends a radio signal out to the actual sirens that are amplifying that sound signal and broadcasting it over the area. As you can see, these are the sirens in question. They clamp to typically 3 or 3.5 inch poles that are either attached to the side of a building or structure, or that would leverage a freestanding mount on the top of a building. And Andrel will share the slide presentation with the attendees after the call as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so with that said, they include innovative technology from a text-to-speech standpoint. They all contain battery backup power, so they're all highly reliable. They feature intelligent charging so that we know if there's an issue with any of the batteries as the systems age. That does end up being a wear item effectively. Is just making sure that the batteries in those systems are replaced when they begin to kind of age out on the battery cells. It's highly reliable. The communication is very robust. They're very durable. With the exception of things like lightning strikes that tend to make things melt and catch on fire, they've been very reliable in the field. Internal storage helps us broadcast those canned messages that I talked about earlier very quickly. There's a little bit of a time delay when it comes to live voice notification because we have to get that audio message from where it's being initiated out to the sirens over a typically VHF or UHF radio frequency. They're fairly cost effective. The design of the amplifiers and sirens themselves make us fairly efficient from a watts to dB standpoint. And they're very secure, so we don't have to worry about accidental activations by third parties with these systems. And they also test automatically on a regular interval so that we know that they're still functioning as intended. And they come in various sizes from 150 watts up to and potentially above 2400 watts. That's per pole, basically, with the sirens that you see on it in the picture. There's also a mobile version. We've been using this to demonstrate our outdoor siren capabilities to customers. It looks exactly like what you see in the picture and has pretty much all the same features. The difference being that this one is, as we're demoing it to customers, is configured to talk to the demonstration kit on our staff member's laptop who travels around with the unit to demonstrate it to customers. In a production environment, we would expect that that would communicate wirelessly back to a server that your organization is operating. Typically, the Alertus system is based around a application server that is operated by the customer. Not knowing how many of you are existing customers and are already familiar with that model, or if you're new to Alertus entirely, I figured we should cover that point. And again, it has all the same strengths that the fixed solution has. So robust speakers, but it has some other benefits as well. We can move it around fairly easily if you have a seasonal need or a one-time event thing that happens a couple times a year and you need coverage in different areas than normal. This is a really nice solution for those use cases. I basically covered that slide already. Um, again, it's mobile. It moves around, and you can set it up with minimal facilities needs, like are accompanied with the fixed solution. And it's just another Alertis endpoint like everything else that we do. So it's fully integrated into the Alertis product family. There's a few use cases here. So those may apply to you. You may have other use cases that are not listed here, but that's just to give you a rough idea of what the system could be used for. With that, when we talk about the next step is generally to talk about how to configure the system. So we're in a demonstration server here right now, and we're going to kind of go through the different elements of configuring an Hpsa system in Alertis. And this would be the same for a mobile Hpsa or our current Hpsa products as well. So under the configure system menu, which is where we do the bulk of our work in the implementations team, is going to be a couple sections that are relevant for this. So one is going to be alert services, another is alert devices, and the last is Hpsa systems. So we will start with Hpsa systems, and we have a few items here to look at. So this is sort of a model screen of what your system might look like. There are what are called systems, which are these top level items here. So Webinar Campus 1, Webinar Campus 2. And then below that, you can have what are called nodes. And these nodes, you can see whether or not they have sirens associated with each of these concepts or each of these data structures by the icon here. So if I click on Webinar Campus 1, I'll see a single Hpsa siren configured here. If I click on node 1, there are 2 connected here. And so those are there. They have their own device IDs as well as a siren ID. And there are different activation profiles that can be set up on either the campus level, or sorry, the system level, or the node level. So on Webinar Campus 1, we set up a couple of activation profiles here that could be leveraged. Now, these activation profiles get leveraged by an alert service. So when you activate, you would probably activate a preset alert with a given alert service targeting devices that are members of a given group. So the sirens themselves, they end up being members of your normal Alertis groups, which are going to correlate to kind of how every other device that you're likely working with is being targeted today, as well as the system and node concepts. Now, the system is important because that's what defines what siren activation behavior is available to that device. And then the node is kind of a subgroup concept beneath that. Advanced settings here is very similar to the advanced settings you would see on an alert beacon. You can tell it whether it's a critical node. And you can specify latitude, longitude locations here as well. Now, when we get out of the configure a siren page on the Hpsa systems, it dumps us up to alert devices where you can add more Hpsas. And that's fairly easy. So you just populate fields as needed, and then you assign it to a group, and you say save, and then we'll have an additional siren available to that unit, or that node in this case. So if we jump back to alert HPSA systems and expand the campus 2, now we've got a second siren available to that system. Now, the HPSA systems page is a little unique in that anytime you click this, you'll see the associated device, like downstream devices for either that node or that campus. At this page, it's only going to show us what's directly associated with it. If we go to the dashboard, then what we see is everything downstream of that. So if I say I want to see what's in the campus 2 HPSA system, I can then say either the system name, where I get everything that is part of it, or I can say I want a specific node within that system where I would see both of those systems. Now, campus 2 is not a good example, but campus 1, we broke it out in different levels a little bit differently to fit that talking point better. So we say webinar campus 1, and we see all 4 systems. If I say campus 1 node 1, then I see only the 2 items there. If I say node 2, I believe there's only 1 on that one, and so only 1 will show up. So this is useful if you just want to test connection to something, figure out what their status is, run a silent test, get a status of the CCU, which is typically the unit that is network connected, that is then sharing any commands out to downstream HPSA devices via radio. So the dashboard is really useful from a status and control standpoint. Typically, we're going to activate these things via presets. And in order to do that, we also need to leverage alert services. We've made a couple of them here, but they have a dependent concept in them related to the HPSA activation profile. And this is defined at the system level. So system and node level, I'm sorry. We're just going to run through that real quick here. And the profile number is important because that's calling up a pre-canned notification that resides on the Sirens cabinet itself. So that's generally fixed. So changes to this need to be done very carefully. Then you specify a duration and we hit save. And once we have that activation profile, then we can go make the associated alert service and then make the preset alert that calls that just like we normally would. So we'll add an alert service. These will be HPSA 2.0. And we're going to call it some name. We want to talk about campus 2 and campus 2 node 2 lockdown. And we'll add that alert service. And now we can go make a preset alert for campus 2 node 2 lockdown. So best practice here is to just match whatever the canned HPSA message for that activation profile is going to say. So that if we're incorporating other types of alert devices, the messaging will be cohesive between the two multiple platforms. And duration here is specified in minutes instead of seconds by default. And then we would add our alert services here, which would be Campus 2 Node 2 lockdown. And you could add alert. Well, we'll take desktops off for now. And then for our group, we could say Campus 2. Then we'll add that preset alert. And then that should be visible within the preset activation page on the web console and any other platform that you would be leveraging preset alerts from, whether it's our desktop activator application, our mobile activator, the web console, or various types of panic button solutions that we might have. So it's going to try and activate both Hpsa devices that are members of Webinar Campus 2, because that's how we associated our group membership. And then we'll have the active alert here at the bottom. The recording will be available for review within probably an hour or two from the call concluding. So that's how we would configure our new Hpsa systems. What questions are available for or from everyone here?
So someone had a quick question about the MHPSA. It says, can multiple mobile HPSAs work together?
Yes, you can have multiple mobile HPSAs connected back to the same server. That should not pose any technical problems.
Okay. And then another question for the MHPSA too. Can the trailer be pulled on a public road? Does it have brake lights and directional?
Yeah, I believe it uses a 4-pin trailer plug, and I don't know what its weight is, but it's pretty standard kind of utility trailer frame. So yeah, it's fully road legal.
Okay. And then we have one last question for the MHPSA. How can you demo do you do demos for the mobile HPSA unit?
Yes, we definitely do. I don't know where our demonstration unit is in the country, but it does travel around. I'm sure we could coordinate that for you and let you know where it is and when the next kind of test for it will be. Normally it's being used as a sort of proof of concept demonstration to help potential customers of static HPSAs understand what kind of audio capabilities they would be buying into. But if they're interested in the actual mobile HPSA itself as well, there's no reason why we wouldn't be happy to show you that exact product so that you can get a good view of what you would potentially be investing in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just want to add that we do have an ongoing roadshow with the MHPSA. We're doing a little national tour right now, and I believe the trailer is actually in Virginia today. But I think we will be moving on to Texas next. But we can share the schedule with you after the call. So the next question is, what's the difference between the beacons with an audible speaker on a pole and the HPSA?
So the difference between the so you can have alert beacons that there was a legacy implementation of the Hpsa that leveraged our old text-to-speech technology that was a peripheral of the alert beacon. And that could be done with the same sort of power category of Hpsa sirens. That required direct audio connection to the, or direct network connection to the each individual siren. And that was available in the same kind of 300 to 1200 watt range. And it basically behaved as any TTS speaker. There was also a slower or slightly lower powered version of that concept where we would have either 5 or 15 watt indoor outdoor horns connected to a text-to-speech peripheral for places where you needed more audio coverage than our wall-mounted speakers could provide, but less than what we're talking about for the Hpsa, which is a wide area type coverage area, whereas the 5 or 15 watt horns, that would be like an entryway near a building on the outside of it, or maybe a parking garage, things like that. The latest console update is basically a UI overhaul, primarily around removing Apache struts and some of the associated security vulnerabilities with that. So the top navigation bar is kind of gone, and then the left-hand side menu is your primary navigation point, and it just comes with a different look and feel. You can do different color themes. So like there's a dark mode, there's a light mode. I think we're in the classic mode right now. And then will there be any training sessions on how to implement Alertus with Azure? That is that like the server lives
Yeah,
in Azure, or is that like a desktop VDI deployment that sits in Azure? Ignoring briefly that doesn't really pertain to HPSAs.
yeah, I can have someone reach out to you, John, and we can so work on that problem. And then we have our last question. Do new HPSAs still connect to a beacon connected to TTS module?
No, so the new HPSAs, we have what's called a CCU, which is a central control unit, and that is what talks to the Alertus server, and then so the Alertus server tells the CCU you have an activation, and then any that CCU has a radio connection typically, and there are HPSA sirens on the same radio frequency, which requires some FCC licensing typically, just because of the powers and ranges that we operate in. And the CCU then sends that signal directly to the sirens themselves.
Perfect, awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Please fill out the survey on your way out to help us better serve you. And if you have any comments or additional questions, please feel free to contact support or your respective account managers. If we didn't have any questions that were unanswered, we will reach out to you after. We'll have the representative reach out to you. And I hope everybody have a great day. Thank you.